Welcome and a very happy new year to all of you. So here we are, new year, new energy, existing topics, but helping build new perspectives. Here at Proud Depressive, our continued effort is to engage in conversation on topics on mental health so that people understand it better and get help when they need it. For those of you who are joining for the first time, and we know there are quite a few, Proud Depressive is a movement founded by Archana Verma, a senior IS officer, in June 2020, along with other founder members who are proud to share their stories. इसमें और friends और health professionals भी जुड़े हुए हैं, and everybody associated with this movement is committed to fight stigma and raise awareness about depression. I'm Tulika Sharan, Senior Director, Publicist Sapient India, and I'm happy to play the moderator for today's session. ये सातवां सेशन है हमारा जो हम कर रहे हैं. हम महीना में एक बार करते हैं ये सेशन. And topics like role of family and friends, SAD, anxiety, caregivers, perspective, etc. have been covered in previous sessions and recordings are posted on YouTube. ये movement हमारा जो है that has gathered momentum over the last 6 months and we see increasing interest in participation, which is exactly why Archana started it and all of us joined it. Be it here on Facebook page, on YouTube, which is absolutely fabulous to see. आज के सेशन के बारे में बात करें तो today's session is titled The Story of a Survivor. Mental health as a topic gained currency during COVID. जब आइसोलेशन हुआ और लोग इसके बारे में काफी बातें करने लगे, सुशांत सिंह राजपूत के भी डेथ के बाद से इसके बारे में काफी बातें हुई. लेकिन एक इंडिविजुअल है जो इसके बारे में बहुत पहले से बात करते आ रहा है. This individual is Shubrita Prakash, who has been an exemplary, iconic path breaker for talking about her depression for many years now. And it's not easy to lay bare your life. So we have to, kind of give credit for her to, take up that kaggle and show us the path. Shubrita has authored a book, The D Word, that is practically like a Bible. And she wrote it when she was still dealing with one of her toughest phases of depression and more like a therapy. Honest and unflinching, ये review लिखा हुआ है psychiatrist Dr. Shyam Bhatt का on the cover of the book, which is written from a survivor's perspective with a ton of painstaking and meticulous research. We are very proud to have her as our speaker today. Shubrita is an officer with the Indian Revenue Service and has many laurels to her credit, जो कि अभी हम थोड़ा बताएंगे भी आपको. लेकिन मेरे लिए she remains my sweet little junior from school in Patna. We went to the same school, St. Joseph's Convent, और आज भी शुभ्रता का जब नाम लिया जाता है उसके नाम के मेंशन पे मुझे वो सिंसियर, स्वीट, सुपर इंटेलिजेंट टॉपर बच्चा ध्यान आता है जो नीले स्कर्ट, व्हाइट शर्ट में वही इमेज आता है सबसे पहले मेरे लिए. So personally to me too, it's a huge moment. To host a session, almost overwhelming, where Shubrita is the speaker. So a little bit about Shubrita Prakash. At present, Shubrita Prakash, an IRS officer, is posted as Director Niti Aayog, New Delhi. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics Honours from St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and an MBA from Xavier's Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. She has briefly worked in the field of advertising with Lintas and Leo Burnett before joining the civil services. She is the author of The D Word, जैसा पहले बताए. इस book का नाम है The D Word, A Survivor's Guide to Depression, and it was published by Pan Macmillan India in 2016. Her speaking engagements include a talk on mental health and stress in the workplace at UNICEF Bangkok in 2017, at the 8th National Conference of Women in Police in 2018, at Gurgaon Literature Festival in 2019, at the Pune International Literary Festival 2020, and she was a guest speaker at the World Health Day 2017 event of WHO and Government of Maharashtra. She has a blog on the Times of India entitled Elemental and is a frequent contributor to numerous publications and web platforms. She has been featured in a video being used for promoting mental health among youth by the portal at Youth Ki Awaaz. She's a co-contributor to the book Real Stories of Dealing with Depression, which was published by Simon and Schuster in 2019. She's also the author of a book of poems titled Ink on Water. She's an avid reader and likes to paint and draw. She blogs at www.talktalkmeblogspot.in www और ये लिंक्स हम चैट विंडो में डाल देंगे ताकि आप लोग उसको नोट कर लें www.shubrataprakash.blogspot.in and her web page is at www.shubrataprakash.com. She has worked in various positions in the Department of Income Tax, where she has dealt with areas of corporate taxation, intelligence and criminal investigation, and internal vigilance, and has done a short-term course in international taxation at the Sanford School of Public Policy, Duke University, USA. She works on areas related to trade, communications, and mental health at the policy think tank of the Government of India. In conversation with Shubrata is our acclaimed psychiatrist, Dr. Anukriti Verma, who is the other speaker for today. Let me share her rich bio with all of you too. Dr. Anukriti Verma is a consultant psychiatrist at Vimhans Hospital, New Delhi. She is an MBBS from CCS University, Meerut, and DNB Psychiatry from the National Board of Examination. Dr. Verma was formerly at Safdarjung Hospital, New Delhi, and IHBAS. She specializes in general adult psychiatry that includes management of common disorders like depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, OCD, de-addiction, and personality disorders. She's also addressing behavioral problems in children and adolescents and relationship issues. Dr. Anukriti ne kuch nahi choda hai. In addition, Dr. Anukriti heads consultation, liaison psychiatry, and psychoeducation projects at Vimhans. Dr. Verma has multiple publications in established journals on topics like suicide, body dysmorphia, and emergency psychiatry. She is also involved in training of the general physicians for the understanding and management of psychiatric disorders at Vimhans and recently at RML. She is teaching and training postgraduate students in psychiatry. Her introduction speaks for how busy she must be, but she agreed to do this for us because she's also passionate about spreading awareness and mental illness, about mental illness and destigmatization. Dr. Anukriti is routinely involved in public awareness lectures on mental health at various platforms like IHC, Delhi University, Safdarjung Hospital, etc. So before we jump right in, two call-outs. One is that some of the conversation may entail suicidal ideation, so people who may feel triggered are requested to, make sure that you have adequate support around you. Or if you feel triggered, you can, choose to drop off also. The other is that every story is unique. What works for one may or may not work for another. So what we are going to hear today is Shubrata's story, which is her personal experience. So every story is valid and important, and it is we hopefully will learn a lot and take away something from them. So just those two caveats that I wanted to call out. And with that, we jump right in. We'll take the questions at the end. आप लोग अपना questions chat window में type करते रहिए, and you can also ask them live to our distinguished panel, Shubrata and Dr. Anukriti Verma, at the end of the session. Shubrata, without making our audience wait any longer, we'd love to hear your story. Shubrata, with that, I invite you to take the stage.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And Tulika Di, as you just started off with all the talk about school, you made me really sentimental. And to add to it, I can see Tejashi ma'am also on the screen. So it's kind of all, coming together. And I really got very emotional. So, okay, with that, I start. And before I start, I would just like to say a big thank you to Archana ma'am for this entire initiative, everything that she's doing. And today for inviting me, for having me on the show where I can share my story with everyone. And as Tulika Di has already said, that what I'm going to talk about is my own story, what has happened to me and how my journey has been. And there is no sure, short way of dealing with these things. But at the same time, it is important to listen to all the stories that are there about depression. So when just at the time when I'm starting out to talk about my story, there's something I would just like to read a couple of lines from my book, which is how I've started my story in the book as well. Because depression and my own story is so difficult to talk about, and my history of mental disorders has been like so long and so complicated. So let me just say what I have written in the book. My book, the part that deals with my story, it starts as the beginning. And I have used a quote from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, where the white rabbit put on his spectacles. Where shall I begin, please, Your Majesty? He asked. Begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on to the end, then stop. Well, it was easy for the king to order so, but it is difficult for me to begin my story. I do not know where the beginning is, or for that matter, where the end is. Still, I will try to tell it the best as I can. And this holds true for me even today, about almost 5 years since I wrote those lines in my book, that I kind of know where the beginning is, but I don't know where the end is, and I'm just hoping it will be a good one. So, Tulika Di has already given my introduction, and she's spoken about my school achievements and my college achievements and civil services and everything. So I used to be this person who would kind of not walk but skip. And my friends in college would tease me that, look at her, she's not walking, she skips. So how did I go from being that person who used to skip to this person who would just lie in bed all day like a vegetable, just crying and not knowing what's happening to her? That was the worst part of it all, that I didn't know why I was crying and why so many things were happening. So the earliest memory that I have is of feeling a little low, suicidal, and BP a few days after the birth of my first child. And the contrast was so stark because the pregnancy was such a happy thing that had happened to me. I was so happy through each and every single day of it. And then when I had this really beautiful baby in my hands, my first child, and it was all a very nice, rosy picture. My husband, me, the baby, everyone around me, the whole family. So what happened, I really don't know why I was feeling like that, but it was really bad. And there were days I would feel that maybe just jumping off my balcony is kind of going to solve it all, because I had a lot of emotional pain and I just didn't know why. So what kept me going, I'm sorry, a little emotional, that might happen a few times when I'm speaking today. So what kept me going was basically the love of my child and the loving family that I had. But then, of course, I got a little better after that, probably because depression is something that happens episodically. So in hindsight, most likely it was an episode of postpartum depression, and I got a little better as I recovered from it. But over a period of time, let's say the next 5 years, things were not really what they used to be before this episode happened. And at that time, my family and I, we didn't know that probably what I had gone through was postpartum depression, because very little was known about this phenomenon at that time at all. In fact, there was very little known about depression to me and my entire family. So I think in hindsight, probably I went through my entire second pregnancy having depression, and I had a lot of other physical problems as well. I had gestational diabetes, I had pregnancy-induced hypertension, I had so many things, and it was just that the depression part was not known to any of us. So the first time that I had to actually take the help of a psychiatrist was sometime in 2009, when one day I had a lot of anger issues and I couldn't figure out again that why I was feeling this way. And at that time also my doctor had said that maybe it's anxiety, and there were coping techniques which were given to me, and I kind of got over that bump as well, went on, joined back office, and life went on. But it was in 2011, which was about 5 years after I had first experienced postpartum depression, that my husband and I, we figured out that something is really wrong with me. Because in these 5 years, I really hadn't been myself. And there were days I would just sit and brood, and I would ruminate over every single negative thing that had happened in my life. And I would often find myself crying, and I would cry for no reason. I would cry at the drop of a hat, and any little stress that happened, any small thing, anything. It was like I didn't know my triggers. Anything could trigger me. Anything could trigger a crying episode. And at that particular time, I had just gone through a very difficult phase in my office as well. And there were issues related to my work, not particularly to my work, but I was under a lot of pressure to do some things which my conscience just wouldn't allow me to do. And I had kind of just refused to do all of that. And well, things had become very, very difficult dealing with that thing that was happening in my office. So that is when I first went and met a psychiatrist. My husband also said that okay, something is wrong, because this is not the person that you were when we got married so many years back, and then definitely something has changed, and let's just go and find out what it is, because if you need help, we need to get you that help. So it was in 2011, 5 years, as I said, after I first started showing the signs. We did go to psychiatry at that point of time. And the psychiatrist, after talking to me, she gave me the diagnosis of major depressive disorder, which was depression. Depression as the term that we usually use in our local colloquial parlance. And this was a real shocker to me. I remember more than anything, it was the diagnosis itself which really shocked me. Because let's be very honest, I had no clue about mental disorders or even mental health. I had never bothered to read up much about it. I lived in the same society which, believes that depression is something that is a choice, and someone who's weak. I'm using all these with the air quotes. A choice, a weakness of character, somebody who's not able to deal with whatever is happening in their life. They go into depression. These are the ways that we deal with, because whenever you say go into something, that's a choice you're implying on the person who's experiencing it. So these were all the paradigms, all the popular myths, all the societal beliefs that I myself had grown up with. And to figure out that I had, someone telling me that I had depression, it was like the diagnosis was as problematic as the problems that I was facing at that time. But fortunately for me, my husband was with me from day one, and he said, okay, whatever it is, we have to deal with this together. And let's just take the help that's there, and let's just get through this thing together. So at that time, just after this diagnosis, actually a couple of things happened. I was put on a course of antidepressant medication, and though I did not have any regular, specialized therapy at that time, but I used to have chats with my psychiatrist on my visits. And the stress of office was completely taken away, because I took leave, because I had to save myself, I had to save my life, I had to save my mind from all the things that were happening there. So all of this together, and then because I had a lot of time on my hands, I was still relatively young at that time, and the kids were just getting to be a little manageable at that time. So I started doing a lot of exercise. I started my gym and yoga and everything, and sort of I felt good. I had depression, but I remember I had some of the best times in my adult during that phase at that time. So in 6 months, I was well enough to taper off my medication as per the schedule given by my psychiatrist. And it is at the same time that we moved from Chennai to Delhi. And things were kind of okay in the beginning. But unfortunately, that particular year of my life, let's say, I think it was August to September of 2011 to the August and September of 2012. That was an extremely stressful year of my life. And as a family, we went through a lot of things. Children were not used to the cold. They were born in Chennai, and from Chennai to Delhi, it was a big move for them. And they would keep falling ill. Then I fell ill a couple of times. And then my husband had some very serious health problems which were threatening his life. So dealing with all of that was an additional stress on me. And here I would just like to qualify this and tell everyone that, see, the way I used to process stress before my first episode of postpartum depression was completely different from the way that I was processing stress at this point of time. Because I think the illness and whatever it left in my, the vestiges it left in my brain had actually changed my brain vis-a-vis the ways I dealt with stress completely. So all this stress really built on me, and it was after my husband had recovered and things were kind of getting back to normal for the whole of family. It was that time that I started showing signs of depression again, and it was very severe this time. And the period from August of 2012 to the August of 2016, those 4 years, I just don't know how I've survived. And I would just say that I'm very fortunate that I'm here to, tell my tale, because anything was possible, because I had very, very, very severe depression at that time. So this period of 4 years, well, it was a very mixed kind of period for me, because initially I started off with antidepressant medication, and I was, maybe feeling better on a couple of days, but I would feel very bad another 3 days. So it went back and forth. And I don't know what really was going through my mind at that time, because everything seems to be a blur now. And I just remember kind of lying in my bed and staring into space most of the day. And it was so difficult to make everyone around me understand what I was going through, because my husband was with me, but the rest of my family, nobody was really able to understand what was happening with me. And I used to receive all these, advice and lectures and everything about how to be strong and how to deal with things, etc., etc. Now, all this stuff, all this talk was kind of further stressing me, because it wasn't helping me at all, because it wasn't a choice that I had made. Something had obviously gone wrong with my brain. And the thing is that nobody knew about it. Everybody thought that it's a choice, because ultimately we all live in the same society that feels that depression is a choice. So all this was making recovery really difficult for me. Then it was somewhere around April of 2013 that we moved from Delhi to Ahmedabad. And during this time in Delhi, of course, I had to take leave from office, because I was just not in a position to do anything. In fact, I wasn't even able to get out of bed on certain days. So where was the question of even working? But when I moved to Ahmedabad, I started feeling a little better, maybe because of the change of place and change of everything. There was a little change in my medication as well. And I started getting therapy as well, because at that time my psychiatrist had referred me to a psychoanalyst, and we used to do a little bit of talking and talk therapy. So for a year, I was kind of managing my symptoms with the aid of medication and therapy. And whenever I would have time, I would maybe go for a swim or go for a walk, or just try a little bit, being physically active, if nothing, at least climbing up and down the stairs. So that is how I was, trying every single thing that was possible to get better. And during that 1 year, I went back to work. And in fact, I was handling the work of 4 officers at that time, because I had 4 different charges that I was handling. So for a year, it was kind of all right. I wouldn't say that I was happy or I was all right. And it's not even about happiness, because depression is not the opposite of happiness. It is not sadness. It's an illness. So I was just kind of managing. That's the only thing I can say about this particular phase of my life. But then towards 2014, again, things were started going downhill again. And the worst thing was that during all these days, I couldn't figure out why I'm feeling this way. why I'm feeling so bad. There is nothing in my environment because I had been conditioned to believe that, okay, it is stress and something in the environment which is fueling my depression. And right at that time, there was nothing I was absolutely, my life was like kind of very smooth and everything was working out well. And I had really nothing to worry about and there was no stress as such. So I just could not figure out what is wrong with me, why I'm not able to, like people often used to tell me that, look, it's such and such person, that person has much, has it much worse than you. And they don't have depression, they are all right, they are moving with their lives. And why are you lying in bed? You have nothing to be depressed about. And that I internalized all these conversations that people used to have with me. And I also used to think that, yeah, maybe, it's I'm a bad person. Maybe I'm grateful for all the blessings in my life. And there's something wrong with me in the sense that not something physically wrong with me, but yes, maybe I am really a bad person. I am a lazy person. I had internalized all that stigma that was coming through these conversations. But that still did not help me. Just telling me that so and so has it worse than me did not get me out of bed and did not get me jumping off to do the next best thing. So then this period of August 2014 to August 2016 was probably the worst, the absolute nadir, as you can say. It was the lowest point probably of this entire phase of depression. I don't know how I can even describe the symptoms except to say that, believe you me, you can look at me now and you can imagine that a person like me, I would not get out of bed for like maybe 3 days in a row. I would not brush my teeth for 3 days in a row. I would not take a bath. I would not shower. I would not shampoo my hair for 15 days in a row. And all, except for using the toilet, I would get up to use the toilet, and that was about it. That was about the extent of my movements. All the meals were brought to me in bed. And my husband often used to worry that, more than anything else, I may just, my muscles may just start to atrophy and I may just fall physically very severely ill as well. And he would, we tried to work out a lot of different rituals, like switching on some very cheerful music in the morning to get me out of bed. Now, the thing is that when you have depression, sometimes the stimulation can just get too much. And instead of being helpful, that sort of becomes counterproductive. So on some days, I used to feel good with the music. But some days I used to feel even worse that, okay, there's so much of music in the world, but still I'm not able to appreciate it. And I'm still lying in bed. And I would still rather lie in bed than listen to that upbeat music. So this is how bad things were during that time. And then somewhere in 2015, we moved from Ahmedabad to Bangkok. My husband got posted to Bangkok. So this move was a very a difficult one for us in the sense that the state I was in, I just didn't know how we are going to manage. And hats off to my husband, he just said, no, whatever it is, we manage. You just, let's just go, because you are not getting any better here with all the set of medical facilities and treatment that you have. It's not that you're getting better with that. And it's only much later that my husband told me that I believe my doctor here had told me that, don't take her, she will not come back. But still, even against that backdrop, we did just decide to just go on with it. So we continued with the same medication that I was taking in Ahmedabad, even after reaching Bangkok. And one of the things that had happened was that I don't know if it was the medication or what it was, but I had put on some 12 kgs after, in that 1 year. And I was just having this talk yesterday, that my body had become so unwieldy and I was not used to it. I was used to my usual weight, and suddenly there I was like a balloon, and my body didn't know how to carry that weight. So I remember I had fallen twice on the roads in Ahmedabad because I just did not, it was like my body was not able to coordinate well, even to walk properly. So this is how bad things were when we moved to Bangkok. Now, there for the initial 6 months, I continued with the same medication protocol that I was taking earlier. But then something happened towards, I think it was in November of 2015. I started having a lot of tremors in my hands and legs. And not just my hands and legs, I think I was having it all over my body. And there was a time when I couldn't sleep at night because my body would just start the tremors and my hands and feet would move any which way. So we were not sure what was happening, and I suspected it might be the medication which was doing this. So we reached out to the doctor there, and the doctor said, no, I don't think it's possible, but let's just try to re-prescribe a little and see. And of course, all the tests were done to see if my muscles and my nerves, etc., were working well, and thankfully they were working well. So the doctor de-prescribed a little, just dialed down my medication to a certain level, and it brought me immediate relief. The trembling reduced. And here I would just like to add a caveat that whatever I'm talking about now is, my own personal experience. And you don't have to do what I did. Please don't do that. Please don't go off your medication in case you're taking something without consulting your doctor. Because this is precisely what I did. I defied all medical logic. And we needed to have this conversation. My husband and I had a sit down and we had a deep conversation about this. And we figured out that for 3.5 years, I was so medically compliant. I was taking every single medication that was prescribed to me at different points of time. And yet nothing was working. I was just as bad as I had been at the beginning, in fact, worse. So what is the point? Mentally, I wasn't getting better. And physically also now my body was showing signs that it was not able to cope up with all the medication that I was taking. So I just did a fast taper because the amount of antidepressant medication I was on at that point of time would normally take someone about 2 years to taper off, I guess. Of course, I'm not a doctor. This is just my considered opinion. But I just tapered off all my medication within 2 months. And that anniversary is coming very close. It's very close now. It's on the radar. I remember it was 20th January 2016, and we're almost on near 20th January 2021. So I just went completely medication free. And then after a lot of things happened. For the initial 2.5 months, I had severe withdrawal from all that medication that I was taking. And I had all the physical symptoms of withdrawal, and I also had depression still. And worse, I had very severe suicidal ideation at that point of time. And I was just struggling to kind of stay afloat. I was struggling to find reasons to stay alive. And the reasons were there. I would see my children, I would see my husband, and then I would think that, okay, these are the people I'm hurting probably the most because I want to live for them, and it's they who have to deal with everything that comes with my disability and my illness. And is it even worth it? I used to wonder every day. And that's when my husband told me that, look, all you have to do is just stay alive, okay? You don't have to do anything else. Whether you get out of bed or not doesn't matter. Whether you ever go to work or not doesn't matter. Whether you get any salary in life after this, it just doesn't matter. We just need you to be there for us because we are better off with you than without you. Even if it is, whatever state you are in, it's all right. At least you are there. If in 365 days, even if you're able to talk to us well for one day, even if you're functional for one day, that's one day of our life which we will not get if you're not there. And somehow that is something that really turned around things for me. I'm sorry, I just take a shock. Well, usually I don't get so emotional when I talk about my story, but I think a lot of familiar faces there. So that kind of was probably the turning point for me. And it was from that kind of space that I had that all that was expected of me in life was just to stay alive. And I think that is the biggest blessing I had at that time. So I just said, okay, let's just do it. And that was also around the time that the 2.5 months of initial very severe withdrawal was over. And then after I started, having small windows of normal mood, like maybe for 10 minutes in a day or an hour in a day or something like that. I would just feel like When I say normal, it's for me normal is the way I used to be before all these things happened. So that's how it started. And day by day, I would see the windows would get bigger and bigger. And whenever I had a small window or a big window, whatever it was of normal mood, I just tried to build up on that. I just tried to build up on all the strengths I had. So on days when I had energy, I started going for a swim again. And sometimes, if I felt like it, maybe I would do half an hour of yoga. I started doing mindfulness meditation. Then I started journaling. Like those days, I used to just lie in bed practically all day. And I'm sorry, I'm not lying in bed, but in the sense that I wasn't working, I was just at home. So, how do I account for my day? How do I know that I have actually lived this day? So, what I started doing was that on my phone itself, I just, started writing down 3 things that I did that day. And it was something very simple, like I spoke to my kids today, I helped them with their homework today, I went for a swim today, or I read a book today. So from that list started going on to maybe 5, 7, and then these days started when I had a long list of things to say that okay, I did all this today. So maybe it got the dopamine working in my brain. I don't know, whatever it was. But all of this helped me a lot. And then it was, I think, around September of 2016 when I remember very distinctly, it was a set of about 10 days. And I felt as if my brain had just got rewired. How, I don't know, but that is what had happened. And I started feeling like my old self. And it was like, really like a cloud had lifted from over my head. And unlike the popular perception that it's sadness and crying, etc., it's not. It's a complete change of your brain. It's even change in the perception. Like when I had depression, the colors would look a little bit, dull, and the street outside my house would look very dark. Whereas it was not dark, there were a lot of lights, very bright lights on it. So when the depression I don't know if I can use the word ended, but of course, like when I marked that my recovery had reached a significant level, so that's when the colors started looking bright again, and the street outside my house started looking bright again. And one of the things that I did, which I've even written about in my book, is that one day I just crossed the road at night. See, that's the level of visibility I had, that I couldn't even cross the road outside my home by myself. I just did that just to feel that, okay, this is it, I can do it. It's not rocket science or anything, but I somehow couldn't do it because I was so disabled, and now I can. So thereafter, it's been quite a while. It's been more than 4 years now, and I'm very happy to say that I've been doing well. I have not had to go back to antidepressant medication. I haven't, had another episode of depression, and this has been my story so far. In fact, when we were leaving India and we were going to Bangkok, I was not very sure whether I would ever be able to come back and work again in my office. And the day I, joined work again is one of the happiest days. I think it's as good as the first day I joined service, because that is how it actually felt. And thereafter, it's been going all well so far. So this has been my story in a nutshell. And if anyone has felt triggered, I would again request you, please reach out for help to whoever you trust to process everything that I have said. So how am I today? Well, I do not have an active episode of depression as of now. I'm doing well. I have hope. I keep checking in with my doctor, and he does this checklist and he says, "You're hopeful tomorrow?" Yes, doctor, I'm very hopeful. Yes, you don't have depression. So this is how it has been going. However, since we are talking about the survival story, so I would definitely like to say 2 more things. That one is that I do have anxiety disorder. I still have it. I have fairly moderate, severe. I don't know what's the level, but I do have anxiety disorder. I live with it. I manage my symptoms, and I am still functional. I have a kind of sensitive and high-profile job, but I'm able to manage it, I think, to the best of my ability, with even while having anxiety disorder. And the second thing is that recently I've been diagnosed with something called adult ADHD. Now I'll put a footmark and I'll put an asterisk on that, because not much is known about it right now. And I had certain disability, which after discussion and the self-reporting scale and my assessment of my doctor is tentatively it's diagnosis of adult ADHD. Now it's possible that maybe I had it as a child, it was never diagnosed, and the level of disability was mild. So with my coping techniques and okay, I had a fairly good IQ, so maybe I managed that. Or it just may be that my disability is an extension of the anxiety disorder that I have. So I cannot say for sure. My doctor also has put it tentatively. But I have disability, there's no doubt about it. And again, with the treatment plan and my coping strategies, I'm managing it. And to anyone listening in, I would just say that it's all right if you are not all right, because it's okay not to be okay. I have these disabilities still, and I still lead a functional life, and there's nothing to be ashamed about in having any of this. So with that, I wrap up my survival story, and I hope it made sense to all of those people who are watching today.
It not only made sense, it left all of us like in awe and so emotional. Thank you, Shubrata, for that extremely candid, vulnerable story of yours. Just going through all of your years in and living that phase again while you narrated. Completely, grateful for the way you narrated all of it, including the myths that you spoke about and how they in fact worked against, like it's a choice and they made you feel worse. Like, in fact, even from people in the family that, सब कुछ तो है तुम्हारे पास फिर क्यों दुखी हो या look at the other person that you all spoke about, and that it's a sign of weakness. So, Dr. Anukriti, I'd like to ask you this question because I mean, Shubrata explained this very well in how it, kind of was actually counterproductive. But then, what are some of the myths that you have also, kind of seen existing in patients and families in society about depression?
Before I start answering your question, I'd like to say that ma'am's story was not just moving, it was enlightening for many, and it also actually shows you the many different sides of the same coin, not just two but several. I mean, when as a clinician you hear this story out, a whole gamut of scientific explanations come about for various phases that you have described. The fact that comes across, which the audience should also understand, that depression is considered to be an illness, a disorder which is likely to relapse, likely to be of chronic nature. So it is not like if you have just one episode and you take care of that, you are not going to have another. It might come back again. Also, that the illness, the depressive episode, the mood disorder that takes its onset in the postpartum period is more likely to be more recurring and more chronic and develop into an independent recurrent mood disorder. That's what a lot of studies say. Also, what your story also brings about, ma'am, is the importance of the role of family. The role of family, the role of husband, and how, the continuous unbridled support absolutely helps things to actually prevent them from going worse and to support them in the worst time. So a lot of aspects come about, the scientific, the emotional, the social, and then how the functioning of a high functioning individual succumbs to this illness called depression. So I tend to use this line a lot, something I feel is an observation and a fact as well, that depression suffers most at the hands of ignorance, at the hands of denial, and sometimes at the hands of treatment resistance. These are the three things that I'd like to highlight. Depression suffers most at the hands of ignorance. हमें तो डिप्रेशन हो ही नहीं सकता, डिप्रेशन तो वीक लोगों का प्रॉब्लम है, डिप्रेशन बीमारी नहीं होता है, डिप्रेशन आपके सोचने के तरीके में फॉल्ट होता है, इट इज अ फॉल्टी वे ऑफ कोपिंग विद योर लाइफ. So these are all myths that prevent you from recognizing it as a disorder and taking the necessary steps. The second is a denial. I cannot be depressed. I'm too bright to be depressed, or I'm in a very good position to be depressed. I have everything going on in my life, and how can this be depressing? Something that ma'am's story also brought out a little, like the initial denial came across well. And then there is treatment resistance. About 10 to 30% of the people who are given antidepressants or who are
Please कर दिया. I think network issue है मैम के साइड पे.
Tuli, why don't you carry on a conversation with her on the phone?
On like have her added on the phone. I don't know how
Yeah,
that
she
will
can
work.
join through a mobile.
I'll ask her.
But while Dr. Anukriti Verma is joining in, I would really like to pitch in and say that Shubhrata, you were just awesome. You know, when I was reading the D word, it was, I was so shocked because it was almost like reading my own story.
Absolutely.
There was so much of empathy and so much of relation that I could find in the book, which was so like mine. That denial that if you're successful, if you've been a brilliant student, if you've been strong, then depression cannot hit you. I mean, the biggest message which Proud Depressive can take home is that it can happen to anybody. It can happen to the most successful person, to the most brilliant person. It just can hit you anytime. Everybody is vulnerable. Ikyan?
अच्छा ठीक है ओके हाँ. So ma'am is trying to get back.
In fact, when I was speaking, I just got very emotional. It doesn't happen usually. I think it is just because I'm speaking to a very familiar audience, and part of it I got through just, ma'am, looking at your face, smiling and nodding at me in the last few minutes. So, because, yeah, I mean, it also...
Another thing which happened, Shubhrata, that we are always very apologetic about crying. I mean, it's okay. I to cry at the drop of a hat.
Absolutely, ma'am.
It's okay to get emotional. Another myth which is there is that if you're emotional, like somebody said yesterday to me, if you're emotional, matlab aap bade weak ho. Aap turant emotional ho jate ho. So back to Dr. Verma.
Yeah, so I just had some interruption in what I was saying. So like I was just saying, a lot of things come across even scientifically and what ma'am's story brings about. So I was just discussing this trial called STAR-D, and the findings of it are very relevant to clinical science and medical practice dealing with depression, because this has been the largest study. It has been a longitudinal study. There have been over 4,000 participants from all across the globe, and the study actually had findings after 7 years. The important findings that were that everybody does not respond to the first medication tried, and about 10 to 30% do not respond to most medicines tried. The more number of medicines need to be tried for a person, the more treatment resistance he or she is going to have, and the person who's displaying such kind of a treatment resistance is likely to have a more serious depressive illness and a more relapsing one. The target of treatment is always complete recovery. So if I'm trying to treat a patient with antidepressants, my target is complete recovery in the existing episode, because complete recovery will establish a better prognosis and a better outcome later and a fewer chances of relapse. If there is some improvement, but not complete recovery, which is again the likelihood of the subsyndromal picture of depression continuing and having relapses later. So these are certain clinical things that we have found out through the study, and also the most important thing is that if one strategy does not work, there are more strategies, there are more treatment strategies, and something is likely to work, so do not lose hope. Also, Most patients who tend to have relapses are the ones who did not reach full remission or recovery initially, and these are also the people who have certain other problems like medical comorbidities, life stressors, family history, substance use problem, postpartum onset, for example, and other problems that can actually lead to it being a maintaining factor. So, as far as treatment goes, it is important to stick to the treatment, stick to the doctor, let him try more strategies out, be compliant to the treatment, and definitely if you're having side effects and other things, bring it to the notice so that more strategies can also be tried. And also now there are more newer treatments coming along because science has figured out that everything is yet not been figured out about depression, and lots of work continues to go on. And the fact that there are newer therapies also now, like there's RTMS, the magnetic stimulation. There is now ketamine in 2019. Ketamine in the form of S-ketamine has been recognized as a nasal spray for treatment-resistant depression. There is always ECT as a last resort option. So there are other incipient stage developments also, and apart from these, which have been approved now. Coming now to the myths that we were actually surround depression and make it really murky. The very fact that people don't recognize it as an illness, they say it's just a state of mind, you'll come out of it, snap out of it. But to tell you the truth, it is like telling an asthmatic that there is enough oxygen around. Why do you take a deep breath? You're only not trying to breathe enough. There's enough oxygen around. But can an asthmatic really do that? Will the lungs of an asthmatic allow him to take such deep breaths? Similarly, a depressed person, no matter how much you cheer him up with good music, with good food, with fun talk around and other things, his brain is in an understimulated state, so it cannot be stimulated very well. So depression is a disorder. The Global Burden of Disease Study 2015 by the World Health Organization said that depression itself is the largest cause of non-fatal illness burden, which is non-fatal health loss, largest cause of non-fatal health loss in the community across the globe. So it is a disorder. It must be recognized as a disorder, and the earlier you recognize it, the earlier you start off treatment, the better the prognosis is, the better the outcome is. It is said that the duration of untreated illness is in itself a harbinger of a poor prognosis. So if a person has had depression for 2-3 years, but after 2-3 being in denial, being ignorant, trying to fight it with normal routine exercises and other things, if so much of time gets lapsed, changes in the brain occur, which actually prevent it from completely being treated, so it becomes treatment resistant also. So early recognition of the disorder is important. The myths that tell you that it's not a disorder should be addressed, and there are so many more myths. One is that only the people who have stresses in life have depression, which is not true. People with absolutely functional lives doing very well in all spheres, everything in order and in place, also tend to suffer from clinical depression. There are very specific stringent guidelines for us to diagnose a person with clinical depression. It is not just a vague, subjective kind of an experience. Also, the media propagate, so many people believe that this is a media propagated illness. हमारे समय में तो किसी को नहीं होता था elderly से, हमारे समय में तो किसी को depression नहीं होता था, गांव में किसी को depression नहीं होता है, ये तो बस progressive nations and urban society के problems हैं, तुम लोग seriously लेते नहीं हो, unit families में रहते हो. These may be slight contributors, but they are not the cause for depression. This is not an observed change really. There have been depression has been long recognized from the very early ancient times. That mention also of it in Ayurveda, right? And it's a very, very old illness, but which has actually suffered at the hands of ignorance and denial. And it's present in all spheres, all races. So some of our doctors who work in the rural settings or who work in hospitals where the catchment area is a rural setting know that depression is widespread in the rural settings also, because there the functional outcome is very important. Like people like us, we can afford to take a few months or weeks off from work, maybe take a break, maybe take a vacation. But a poor farmer who needs to be working in the field but cannot get up in the morning and do that, he's going to suffer, his family is going to suffer. So they recognize that functional loss and tend to bring them for treatment. So it's a myth that depression is not there in the rural area, was not there before, and that you need to have evident problems in your life for having depression. So these are some of the myths. Then there are many more. So many people believe that if if you lead a good lifestyle, a very active, healthy lifestyle, if you take care of your nutrition, your sleep, wake cycle, etc., if you do yoga, and if all these kind of things, these are good things for all of us. These are good suggestions for you and me, but they are not treatment or preventive strategies for depression. They are not. They are not. They're going to aid in your feeling of wellness. And even when you're taking the treatment of depression, the doctor tends to tell you sleep on time, wake up on time, try and do some exercise daily, do not eat junk, be healthy, things like that. But that is not going to relieve your depression. Also, because there is no scientific basis that these things or the natural foods and other things available are actually going to help relieve your symptoms of depression. Then there are a lot of myths surrounding the depression treatments, etc. People believe that these are very dangerous medicines, that they will change your personality, they will affect the way I think. I'm not the same person that I used to be after I'm on these pills. I don't feel happy like before. I don't think like that. So now these medicines are very highly targeted and they work on specific receptors, specific circuits which are involved in depression, and they will not change your personality. They will not alter the way of your thinking in life, except whatever has been affected by depression is going to change back to normal, because that's what it's intended to do, alleviate the depressive symptoms. There's also a myth that, once that the antidepressant once started, the patient feels, I've taken the pill today, I'm feeling fine today, oh, I'm feeling good, I've started the pill. And then the next day I miss the pill, so I'm feeling low. Antidepressants or all medications for depression takes 4 to 6 weeks minimum to bring about the effect. So nothing happens before that. Also, the study trial, like I was mentioning, found out that some patients need a continuous trial for up to 12 weeks, not just 4 to 6 weeks, for very good response. So that the time period must be kept in mind. And another myth that once antidepressant किसी को एक बार दवाई शुरू कर दी तो उसको हमेशा दवाई चलती रहेगी, डिप्रेशन की दवाई कभी बंद नहीं होती. This is a very common myth that patients come to me with, and they say, Doctor Saab, you're putting us, is there any other way of getting us out of fine? You're telling us I'm depressed, fine, I can accept it. All these symptoms that you mentioned I have, fine. But is there any other way to come out of depression? And if I start the medication, am I always going to be on the pill? Well, the thing that I tell them is that it is a type of depression. It is a type of depression. We tend to treat a mild to moderate episode of depression for a period of not more than 6 months. That is the duration of treatment for a mild to moderate episode of depression. After that, we withdraw the medication, and most medications do not have withdrawal symptoms, and we can even reduce the dose over 1 month and stop them. A few of them do, but there are strategies to manage that also. However, if your depression is very serious, there are maintaining factors for the depression, there are other complicating issues, or there has been a recurrent depression, there has been an atypical onset or type of depression, there has been a strong family history of depression, or an ongoing life stressor which you know is going to cause a maintenance or recurrence. In all these situations, in the previous episodes, you have been psychiatrically hospitalized for your depression, or there has been a suicidal attempt, things like this, which make the episode very serious and give us an idea that they are likely to be dealing with a recurring illness or a chronic nature illness. In such cases, we do not want to stop the medication right away. We want to wait for full remission and then see for how long we can continue the medicine and then gradually remove it. In some cases, yes, when there have been so many episodes, it does not make sense to stop the medicines. In such rare cases, the medicines are continued indefinitely. Also, definitely under medical supervision, because all these medicines does need doctors to review various systems, various parameters are there. Also, certain patients feel that डॉक्टर साहब आपने ट्रीटमेंट कर दिया था लास्ट ईयर, मैं तो ठीक हो गई थी, ये वापस कैसे आ गया, ठीक से ट्रीटमेंट नहीं हुआ. So depression is a treatable illness. It is not a curable illness. It just suggests that the certain areas, maybe chemically, maybe structurally, maybe interlinked circuits, whatever it is, are sort of weak and are vulnerable to going into depression again and again. So yes, majority of the patients after having one single episode of depression, especially more severity, are going to have another episode. That episode could be next year, 2 years, 5 years. We have patients coming in after 15 years of their last episode of depression. So that can also happen. And people believe that depression is, some people believe is always genetic. You see, to understand depression is actually multifactorial. It is not clearly genetic. Even in monozygotic twins, that is identical twins born, the concordance rate or the likelihood of both the twins to have depression is only 37%. So अगर identical twins में 37% है, तो naturally अगर आपके parent को है, तो आपको उससे बहुत कम risk है inheritance का, मतलब depression होने का. However, एक genetic makeup of the brain जो आप inherit करते हैं, that can predispose into having depression. So there is genes, there is environment, there is early life adverse events, there are ongoing stressors, there are various metabolic parameters of the body and the brain linking together, which may predispose a person to developing a depressive episode on stress or without stress, either ways. So this is again a myth that it is always genetic. कि हमारे परिवार में तो किसी को depression है नहीं, तो मुझे कैसे हो सकता है? And that antidepressant should cause 100% recovery. Like I said, 10 to 30% patients में recovery नहीं आता है, treatment resistance में जाते हैं. लेकिन और strategies available हैं, try out करने चाहिए. Stick to the doctor, stick to the treatment, work with the doctor. It is a challenge for us also managing such treatment resistance, and there is a lot of research and a lot of work going into the process of handling treatment resistance in depression. Also, another common myth is that if one drug fails, अब तो हमने तो पूरे 2 महीने दवाई खाई, हम ठीक नहीं हुए, हमने 6 महीने दवाई खाई, हमने छोड़ दिया दवाई, हमें नहीं, हम ठीक नहीं हो रहे. लाइक आई सेड, और भी स्ट्रैटेजीज हैं, वेट कीजिए, वर्क कीजिए डॉक्टर्स के साथ. Why so important to treat depression is the real question. Why is it so important to treat depression? See, in itself, the natural history of depression is कि 6 से 9 महीने में depression 50% of the cases में खुद ही ठीक हो जाता है, नेचुरल रिकवरी में चला जाता है 6 से 9 महीने में. The remaining 50% जिनमें नहीं ठीक हो जाता है, उनमें या तो बहुत सीवियर वर्सन हो जाता है जिसमें डिप्रेशन साइकोटिक हो जाता है या सुसाइडल हो जाता है, और रिमेनिंग जिनमें नहीं ठीक होता है नेचुरली अनट्रीटेड, उनमें वो क्रॉनिक डिप्रेशन बन जाता है. मतलब उसका मात्रा कम हो जाता है, इंटेंसिटी सिवियरिटी थोड़ा एटेन्यूएट हो जाता है, बट process persists करता है over years together, more than 2 years. This kind of chronic depression is associated with more poorer functional outcomes. इसमें आप अपनी फैमिली लाइफ ठीक से नहीं लीड कर पाते, अपनी प्रोफेशनल लाइफ ठीक से नहीं लीड कर पाते, अपने फिजिकल हेल्थ पर ध्यान नहीं देते. यू आर मोर एट रिस्क ऑफ डेवलपिंग मेटाबॉलिक डिजीजेस लाइक कार्डियोवास्कुलर डिजीजेस एंड डायबिटीज एंड एटसेट्रा, हाइपरटेंशन. And the risk of suicide is also higher. Risk of substance use disorder or abusing clonazepam-like drugs or benzodiazepine drugs is also higher when you are having a chronic depression. So these are all the different kind of myths associated. There are strategies available. We must try and use whatever is best available and best suitable for us. See, every treatment does not suit everybody. Right? Even if we talk of the normal food that we eat, every kind of food in the fridge or in the kitchen does not suit everybody. Right? Similarly, to medication also, the antidepressants or any medication for that matter is tested in randomized controlled trials, and it is a statistical response or efficacy or tolerability of the drug that brings it to the market or brings it to the treatment domain. When we say statistics, it means more than a certain number, but it does not mean everybody. It does not mean everybody. Simply, even with the milk that we have, milk does not suit all family members equally. Right? Similarly, the medication is not a final answer to bullseye answer to every kind of depression and with every individual, because there are so many different kind of mechanisms that lead a person to depression. There may be changes in the monoamine, that is serotonin or norepinephrine, low levels of dopamine, there may be circuit problems, there may be signs of hippocampal shrinkage, There may be pre-existing anxiety which precipitates you to depression, predisposes you to depression. So anxiety and depression also have a bi-directional relationship. They tend to, increase each other from time to time, increase the vulnerability to each other, and both of them tend to take you towards drug dependence or substance abuse and general down in physical health. So all these parameters which actually lead your life becoming less functional, your personal professional life and your physical parameters suffering and the risk of suicide. So these are the reasons why we must treat an episode of depression. There are studies to say that untreated depression की जो risk of suicide है वो 20 times higher है treated depression की. So that is why it is important to treat depression. Otherwise natural history में 50% of the patients तो वैसे ही ठीक होने वाले हैं, वो वैसे ही ठीक हो जाएंगे. But if you are in that 50% or not, and how much time of your life you're wasting living like that, and inviting all the risks like suicide, substance use, physical ill health and other things involved. So that is really the question that you have to ask yourself, whether or not is it really worth taking that risk and waiting for so long. So these are various myths which actually make the treatment a delayed option or an avoided option, and so that is how the outcome isn't as favorable as we would like it to be.
Very well described, ma'am, and I trust that because of all these myths and ये stigma भी उसके कारण ही फिर perpetuate होता है. Because there is ignorance, you do not want to go into treatment, and this you fear what people will talk about you or all these labels that society gives. तो stigma भी perpetuate हो जाता है. So I think these two things go hand in hand. You mentioned that 6 to 9 months general जो last करता है. We heard Shubrata's story. She battled depression for 10 years.
Yeah.
And what helped her was the love and unconditional support of her husband. I think that was a theme that definitely I personally, kind of recognized. So what is the role of a loved one? I mean, how can somebody support a loved one who is going through depression? वो काफी critical हो सकता है. I mean, शुभ्रता की story से जैसा आपको लगा. So, I mean, both of you can respond to it, but how can you support a loved one who has been going through depression? I mean, one line that specifically, kind of, hit my heart was when she mentioned that इनके husband का बस एक ये था कि तुम बस जिंदा रहो. माने he gave her that much space and that was reassuring to her. I kind of noted that. So ये loved one का क्या, ये family का क्या यहाँ पे हम कैसे उनको हम मैसेज कर सकते हैं कि आप कैसे सपोर्ट करें somebody who is going through depression?
देखिए फैमिली का रोल बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, सिर्फ डिप्रेशन में नहीं, हर मेंटल इलनेस में, इनफैक्ट हर फिजिकल इलनेस में भी. और इसीलिए कई इलनेसेस, स्पेशली मेंटल इलनेसेस का आउटकम हमारे देश में बेहतर है एज कम्पेयर टू द वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड, क्योंकि यहाँ पर फैमिली सपोर्ट ज्यादा अच्छा है. There are so many things that a family can do and does on routine basis, but when we talk specifically in the context of depression, it is definitely recognizing the change and bringing it to the person's notice and trying to and suggesting help, seeking help. चलो किसी से मिल के आते हैं, डॉक्टर नहीं तो चलो साइकोलॉजिस्ट से मिलते हैं, चलो फैमिली डॉक्टर से बात करते हैं, let's speak to someone क्योंकि तुम पहले जैसे नहीं लग रहे हो, and it's all right. Then the people should, maybe sometimes the depressed patient, because depression का एक part होता है amotivation, जैसे वो मैम बता रहे थे हम बेड से नहीं निकल पाते थे, तो ऐसे व्यक्तियों को थोड़ा सपोर्ट चाहिए होता है, even physically, even I will book the appointment for you, you come, I will take you and I will drive you to the doctor. So much also, this kind of a support also will be required in certain cases. Then sharing with the doctor the background. कई बार डिप्रेशन में पेशेंट इतना वर्बलाइज भी नहीं कर पाते हैं कि वो ठीक से मेंटल फॉगिंग इतना होता है, ठीक से डिस्क्राइब भी नहीं कर पाते हैं. तो so many times पेशेंट ऐसे बैठा रहता है जब सीवियर डिप्रेशन में होता है, एकदम with a downward gaze and drooping shoulders and very little output of words. फैमिली बता रही होती है कि ये पहले बहुत एक्टिव होती थी, अब तो देखो बैडमिंटन खेलती थी, ये रनिंग करती थी, She used to go to work every day. She's not getting out of bed now. She's not changing. She doesn't like anything. She's hardly eating. She's just crying at the drop of a hat. She's not enjoying the TV shows. सब तरीके से इसका performance affect हो गया. So it is the recognition and then taking treatment seeking. In both these spheres, the family can be helpful, and then sharing the history with the doctor. Thereafter, once treatment starts, obviously treatment compliance, seeking the medicines and ensuring that the person is adhering to the treatment plan. So these are the various, and then taking, the next appointment with the doctor, following up with the doctor, giving them feedback. So these are the important background things. Apart from that, there is something called expressed emotions. देखा गया है जो बहुत ज्यादा expressed emotions होते हैं तब भी बहुत अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स नहीं देखा जाता मरीज की ट्रीटमेंट में. एक्सप्रेस्ड इमोशंस मतलब ओवर इन्वॉल्वमेंट. जब व्यक्ति खुद भी कोशिश कर रहा है कि मैं उठ के अपना काम कर लूं, सामान उठाऊं, नहीं तुम बीमार हो, तुम बैठ जाओ, मैं उठा लेता हूँ, मैं कर लेता हूँ. So do not make the person from your own side feel like an invalid. At the same time, do not disregard or discount their symptoms. तुम्हें कुछ नहीं है, उठ जाओ, खुद करो. So somewhere in between. So it has to be a background, patient support in which you are not very critical, you are not over involved, at the same time not over indulgent, but you have background support also. Some patients have suicidal ideation. वहाँ पर family का role paramount है. फैमिली को हम बताते हैं कि अगर आप पेशेंट को एडमिट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं हॉस्पिटल में फॉर वट एवर रीजन, आपको 24 आवर विजिलेंट रहना है पेशेंट के साथ. आपको उनके साथ सोना, उनके साथ जागना है. वो वॉशरूम में जाएंगे तो मेक श्योर वो लॉक नहीं होता. उनके पास कोई ऐसी पोटेंशियली हार्मफुल चीज बांधने की, काटने की ऐसे कुछ अवेलेबल नहीं होना चाहिए. और आपको मेडिसिन खुद सुपरवाइज करके देना है, इंश्योर करना है वो ले लेते हैं, क्योंकि वो अभी इस हालत में नहीं है कि वो ये सब मैनेज कर सके. तो वहां भी फैमिली का बहुत ज्यादा रोल आ जाता है. इसके अलावा अगर जॉबलेसनेस और इस तरह का ऑक्यूपेशनल डेफिसिट रहता है डिप्रेशन में, तो ऑब्वियसली फाइनेंशियल वेज में भी वो हेल्प कर सकते हैं इन थिंग्स लाइक दैट. So these are various ways. However, there is something called caregiver burnout. कभी डिप्रेशन या कोई भी मेंटल इलनेस इतना लंबा खिंच जाता है कि फैमिली मेंबर का बर्नआउट होने लगता है. तो अगर ऐसा हो रहा है तो उनको भी अब थोड़ा सा साइकोलॉजिस्ट से मिलना चाहिए. थोड़ा उनको अगर वेंटिलेशन का मौका मिलेगा, टॉक थेरेपी का मौका मिलेगा, थोड़ा सा दिल बी एबल टू डील विद इट बेटर. कभी सपोर्ट ग्रुप्स भी होते हैं फैमिली मेंबर्स के जो क्रॉनिक इलनेसेस के होते हैं, कि वो भी tend to reach out to each other and feel a little better about the situation being shared by others. So a lot of patience is required, especially for chronic and relapsing illnesses. And some people are not made like that कि वो इतना patient रहे हमेशा, कि अरे हम तो 2 साल से तुम्हारे साथ लगे हुए, तुम अभी भी ठीक नहीं हो रही हो, अभी भी मैं ही कर रहा हूँ, अभी भी सब मैं ही हैंडल कर रहा हूँ. तो ये सब जो एस्पेक्ट्स होते हैं वो कभी डिस्टर्बिंग होते हैं. तो रोल ऑफ फैमिली इमेंस है. रोल ऑफ फैमिली इज इमेंस. इट इज पैरामाउंट. And it is very significant in the recovery process in depression, also like ma'am's story just highlighted.
I would just like to add a few things. एक तो ये कि family support is absolutely sine qua non. You have to have it because बहुत difficult हो जाता है. Now my story is, let us see, my story was basically that of a middle-aged woman who was financially independent and who had all the resources at her hand to and the capacity to make decisions कि भाई मुझे क्या करना है, ये treatment करना है, नहीं करना है, कब जाना है, क्या करना है. Now just think about young children or young adults who are probably not financially independent, and जब उनकी family support नहीं करती है, can you imagine what they go through? Because they do not have the agency, whether it is the emotional maturity, the cognitive maturity, or even the financial independence to go and seek a psychiatrist. तो वो नहीं कर पाते हैं, चाहे therapist हो, चाहे counselor हो, या someone just to talk to. तो वो बहुत that's extremely important for society first of all to accept that depression बीमारी है. क्योंकि क्या है कि ज्यादातर लोग यही मानते हैं कि depression तो क्या है, it is your choice, तुम बेड में पड़े हो, your choice. So the fact that it's an illness, it's a disorder, has to be first accepted by society, and that is why we've been having all these conversations, all these talks, so that more and more people get to know कि एक तरह की बीमारी है which cannot get all right. It is not a choice. कोई डिप्रेशन में चला गया, कोई डिप्रेशन में जाता नहीं है. डिप्रेशन एक बीमारी है जो लोगों को हो जाती है. So वो चीज, that is the approach that's very important. ये रखना कि it's something that you have to help your loved one through. जैसे someone gets a physical illness, तो उस समय everybody curses God and fate and everything. कि अरे यार देखो क्या हो गया, and you know this is going to involve so much of time, so much of cost, it's going to bring disability, etc., etc., etc. But when someone gets diagnosed or someone complains of a, you know, symptoms of a mental disorder, so what happens is people start cursing the person who has it. कोई फेट को या भगवान को शायद फिर भी करते होंगे दैट कैसा बच्चा हमें दे दिया और व्हाटएवर, बट यू नो इट्स लाइक पीपल ब्लेम एंड शेम द पर्सन हु इज गोइंग थ्रू such a big thing. So that is that attitude has to absolutely change. Families have to realize and understand what it is. आप फिजिकल इलनेस के लिए इतना कुछ कर देते हैं, इट टेक्स टाइम. देयर आर द फिजिकल इलनेसेस दैट आर chronic, that are lifelong. We don't abandon our loved ones just because you know they have a physical illness. उसकी बीमारी में, उसके ट्रीटमेंट के लिए, उसके वेलबींग के लिए you put in so much of money, effort, everything. But when it comes to mental illnesses, the choice paradigm that people have is like, I think, the most harmful way of looking at mental illnesses, because it really affects the people who are having it. एक तो वो stigma जो है उसको वो और internalize कर लेते हैं. दूसरा ये है that they have no power and agency. See, someone is lying on bed, they cannot go and approach a doctor. You have to take them. You have to support them through all of it. They may need help with their daily routine, and you may also have to share their burden of the household chores. But it's just that when someone has a physical illness, it is all right. आप खुशी खुशी सब कुछ, खुशी खुशी नहीं भी तो फिर भी आप उसको फटाफट कर लेते हो, चलो बेचारे को थोड़ा पकड़ के ले जाते हैं, ये कर देते हैं, वो कर देते हैं. But that doesn't happen when someone has a mental illness, because अरे वो तो पड़ा हुआ है या पड़ी हुई है, क्या है उसको प्रॉब्लम, you know. So that is the kind of conversation that goes on. So for all the loved ones, you know, anyone who has a loved one who is watching this, I would just say that first of all, try to understand, equip yourself with more knowledge. And unfortunately, India, what happens is that the doctor-patient ratio is such that doctors don't have time to sit and explain what is happening. इतना हो नहीं पाता, वो फटाफट इतनी लंबी लाइन होती है. You wait for 2 hours to actually just have 2 minutes with the doctor. आपका prescription दोबारा से fill हो जाता है, and that is kind of all that is there. So in that case, but I mean, fortunately, we are living in the 21st year of the 21st century. So there's a lot of information that is available on different websites, different books, different platforms, chats like these, बहुत कुछ है. YouTube पे देख लीजिए, हजारों videos हैं. So of course, everything that you read on the net may not apply to you. Have that little bit of judgment, use your own judgment. कोई डाउट हो, डू कंसल्ट योर डॉक्टर, डू टॉक, बट डू दैट. मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप जस्ट बैठे हुए हैं कि अरे वो पड़ा हुआ है तो पड़ा हुआ है. इट्स नॉट दैट. इक्विप योरसेल्फ विद नॉलेज. नॉलेज इज फ्री, इट्स ऑल देयर. And then you just help your loved one go through the times. There will be days when you have to actually will them to live, like my husband did for me. There are days when they may be all right. आपको just थोड़ा सा basic support provide कर देना है. So do have a little bit of look on that. And caregiving का burden जो है, it also is sometimes very stressful. It can also be triggering for people who are giving the care. So I have advised this in my book as well, that take time outs if possible. आप किसी के साथ अगर कुछ arrange कर सकें, to take time outs. And आप अगर खुद बहुत ज़्यादा triggered feel कर रहे हैं, so you have a team, you have a psychiatrist and a therapist, and आपके जो loved one के लिए पूरी एक team है of mental health professionals. So again, there is absolutely no shame if you have to yourself reach out to a mental health professional for a little bit of help yourself. So this is what I wanted to add.
Perfect. I think there's enough message for everybody watching to take home. And in the interest of time, we'll move to questions, but not without asking Shubrata to read something from your book. I mean, this book is such a bestseller, such a landmark in this whole conversation of mental health and depression, that I'm compelled to request you to do a little bit of a book extract reading, and then we'll move to the questions that are on the chat and any live ones that we have.
Thanks, Tulika Di. I'll be very happy to do that. And I just wanted to show, like, this is the book in case anyone's watching. And I'll just read out this extract. You know, this is from the time. This is when we were moving from Ahmedabad to Bangkok, and this is about more of, like, you know, what people say about weak people having depression. So this is something that counters that narrative. So, writing here that I, I was too tired of explaining my illness to people I met all the time. Depression? But why are you depressed? You have everything one could want in life. Yes, I know, but what to do? Being depressed is my hobby. Be strong. Yes, I'm so weak that I walked into my UPSC interview 2 weeks after my heart surgery and still scored a high rank. I am so weak that during my student days, I used to stay in Delhi on my own with my friends and would do the Delhi Patna commute alone while still in my teens. I am so weak that I gave up a high paying job at Leo Burnett for the uncertainty that the UPSC civil services exams are. And I am so weak that when my husband was hospitalized with a platelet count of 3,000, I single handedly managed that first and critical day alone before the cavalry came in the next day. Depression? You look pretty normal. Sorry, I forgot to wear my tattered rags today, and sorry my hair is not matted today. Look at so and so. Look at what a mess their life is. Still, they are not depressed. You should learn from them. Or, oh, I went through such a such thing in my life, but I found a way out and I didn't go into depression. Well, good for them or good for you. I got depression only delivering a baby. Of course, all the difficult times in my life that I fought through without developing major depression don't count, do they? You should pull yourself together and say, get out to depression. Oh, how could I? I love depression and all its strengths anxiety, irritability, depersonalization, derealization so much that I can't live without them. I have to see them once at least daily. Your poor husband, he has to put up with so much. Oh, he's not really my husband. We are living in sin. He did not legally marry me and take responsibility for me. He did not take marital vows around the holy fire, promising to protect me. And if it was the other way round, I would have left him and run away, would I have not? So this is a little extract from the book because this is trying to counter the narrative that society, keeps telling people who have a depression.
So, absolutely fabulous. I mean, that punch in every line. I mean, I personally had goosebumps and I was like loving every line that he said. Like a big applause for Shubrata.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have some questions in the chat window, and people, if you are there, I'd love you to kind of ask them yourself, because that gives you that personal bond with the speakers. We have Dr. Anukriti and Shubrata who will take these questions. So Vipin Pandey, are you here? Vipin Pandey wants to know a little bit more about OCD. Maybe Dr. Anukriti, OCD के बारे में विशेष जानकारी प्रदान करने का कष्ट करें. आत्महत्या जैसी बात बार मरीज करता है, आत्महत्या करने की कोशिश भी करता है. I don't know if this is linked with OCD, but these are the two things that Vipin Pandey wanted to, kind of know about.
Okay. मिस्टर विपिन, ओसीडी आज के हमारे डिस्कशन से तो एग्जैक्टली डायरेक्टली लिंक्ड नहीं है, लेकिन क्योंकि आप सवाल कर रहे हैं तो ओसीडी एक ऑब्सेसिव कंपल्सिव डिसऑर्डर का शॉर्ट फॉर्म है. बेसिकली एक मेंटल इलनेस है अपने आप में ही, जो करीब 4 से 8% लोगों में होती है. 4 to 8% उसका प्रेवलेंस होता है. इसके जो मेन हार्बिंजर्स या जो मेन क्लिनिकल फीचर्स हैं जिससे हम रिकॉग्नाइज करते हैं ये इलनेस है, वो होता है बार बार एक ही प्रकार का विचार दिमाग में आना, जो व्यक्ति को खुद ही एक्सेसिव या अननेसेसरी इनअप्रोप्रिएट लगता है, लेकिन व्यक्ति उसको रोक नहीं सकता, और क्योंकि वो उसको रोक नहीं सकता तो उससे बहुत परेशान हो जाता है. ये ऑब्सेशंस कहलाते हैं. इसके साथ साथ कई बार इन विचारों को कम करने के लिए या वैसे भी कोई काम बार बार करना पड़ता है एंजाइटी कम करने के लिए, जैसे बार बार हाथ धोना, बार बार नहाना, बार बार घर की सफाई करना एक्सेट्रा, जिसको कंपल्शंस कहते हैं. तो व्यक्ति एक तरह की एक बहुत विशियस साइकिल में पड़ जाता है जिसमें उसको बार बार ये विचार आते हैं जो उसको नहीं आने चाहिए. उसको भी पता है कि मेरे अपने दिमाग की उपज है, लेकिन मैं क्यों नहीं रोक पा रहा हूँ. और मुझे बार बार रेकरेंटली ये कंपल्सिव बिहेवियर एक्ट करने पड़ते हैं, जैसे क्लीनिंग एंड अदर थिंग्स, कभी काउंटिंग, कभी टैपिंग, कभी क्लीनिंग, वॉशिंग, वो भी मैं नहीं रोक पा रहा, जबकि इतने एक्सेसिव और टाइम कंज्यूमिंग हो गए, मैं उनसे निकल नहीं पा रहा हूँ। अगर ये लक्षण एक लंबे समय तक रहते हैं तो व्यक्ति की डायग्नोसिस ओसीडी होती है। ओसीडी बाकी मेंटल डिसऑर्डर से थोड़ा ज्यादा डिफिकल्ट टू ट्रीट होती है, इसका बहुत लंबा इलाज चलता है, और बाकी इलनेसेस जैसे अगर 50% रिस्पॉन्ड करती है तो हम कहते हैं अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स है, ओसीडी में 30% भी रिस्पॉन्स आता है, क्योंकि काफी ट्रीटमेंट रेजिस्टेंस काइंड ऑफ इलनेस होती है और लॉन्ग टर्म रहती है, रेकरिंग होती है ये भी, तो इसमें बहुत अच्छे से ट्रीट करना जरूरी है, बहुत अच्छे इलाज अवेलेबल हैं। From 50% of the people respond very well to treatment. From the above, the remaining people, but say about 50% respond very well. 10 to 20% completely remit, मतलब एकदम ठीक हो जाते हैं, और कुछ 20 to 30% होते हैं जो बहुत ज्यादा रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं करते हैं। तो ये ओसीडी नामक बीमारी, इसके कई तरह के ट्रीटमेंट्स अवेलेबल हैं। आपका नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन कुछ सुसाइड से रिलेटेड था।
वो क्वेश्चन उसमें हमको भी बहुत क्लियर समझ में नहीं आया कि आत्महत्या की बात करता है मरीज और करने की कोशिश करता है, पर उसके बाद कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है उसमें। तो
सुसाइड एक ऐसा एक फाइनल सॉर्ट ऑफ एक इवेंट होता है जो बहुत सारी मेंटल इलनेसेस को आके
Excuse me, I'm just sorry I'm interrupting, but I don't think it's a good idea to talk about suicide without giving some helpline numbers for people who are watching. That's the normal protocol. So I think let's just keep it out for another time.
ठीक है, इसका ऐसे भी क्वेश्चन क्लियर नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, so let's just move on. Navanipa, absolutely brilliant. That's a compliment. Chetna has a question. Chetna, are you on? So this is a question for Shubrata, brilliantly narrated. If you reflect back, what actually triggered your recovery? माने कोई रिकवरी का ट्रिगर अगर माने जैसे लगता है कि कुछ अगर है तो उसके बारे में क्वेश्चन है।
नहीं, एक्चुअली ट्रिगर जनरली होते हैं टू फॉर द ऑनसेट कि भाई आपको डिप्रेशन या कोई चीज आपको कोई ऐसा इवेंट हो गया आपकी लाइफ में या आपकी बॉडी में जिससे ट्रिगर हो जाता है। रिकवरी का कोई ट्रिगर नहीं होता है, और मेरे केस में मोर ओवर आई एम नॉट एबल टू से एग्जैक्टली कैसे मेरी रिकवरी हुई। मैंने अपनी पूरी स्टोरी अभी बताई है, तो उसके क्या क्या स्टेजेस थे, हाउ इट हैपेंड, वो पूरा मैंने नरेट किया है। बट ऑनेस्टली बिकॉज आज की डेट में कोई ये कह नहीं सकता कि किसे क्यों डिप्रेशन हुआ, तो उसी तरह से रिकवरी के लिए भी उसको एनालाइज करना बहुत मुश्किल है। दैट व्हाट आर आई कैन ओनली मेंशन द फैक्टर्स दैट हेल्प्ड। जैसे मुझे एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज छूट गई थी इनफैक्ट दैट मेरे नैरेटिव में, विच वाज द थेरेपी, ये कॉग्निटिव बिहेवियरल थेरेपी, जिसके बारे थैंक यू इनफैक्ट फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन बिकॉज ये छूट गया था। बिकॉज कॉग्निटिव बिहेवियरल थेरेपी एक तरह की टॉक थेरेपी है जो कि आपके थॉट्स को रैशनलाइज करने में बहुत हेल्प करती है। बिकॉज व्हाट हैपेंस इज जब आपको डिप्रेशन होता है तो आपके ब्रेन में जो चेंजेस हो जाते हैं वो कुछ ऐसे हैं कि जो आपकी न्यूरल पाथवेज हैं जिसमें फायरिंग ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स न्यूरॉन्स होता है, तो उसमें जो रूमिनेशन पार्ट है कि सेम चीज आपके दिमाग में बार बार घूमती जा रही है, आप उसको आप उसमें सकिन हो जाते हैं। सो यू आर नॉट एबल टू सी एज एन आउटसाइडर दैट आई एम थिंकिंग द सेम थॉट अगेन, विच इज एक्चुअली नॉट हेल्पफुल एंड इट्स नॉट लीडिंग टू एनीथिंग। जैसे कोई पास्ट इवेंट है ना, पास्ट कैन नॉट बी चेंज्ड, बट आप उसको बार बार सोचते जाते हैं बिकॉज इट्स लाइक आपके वो जो ब्रेन के ऑटोमेटिक सर्किट्स में वो एक्टिवेट हो जाते हैं। सो CBT इज अ वेरी गुड वे ऑफ डीएक्टिवेटिंग दोज सर्किट्स, और एटलीस्ट उसको रैशनलाइज करने में हेल्प करते हैं। So whenever you have a negative thought, तो उसको analyze करना कि ये thought क्या है, whether it is a thought of anger or fear or sadness, and is it real, उसको थोड़ा सा analyze करना कि इसके लिए what proof do I have that this thought is real, and then अगर real हो या ना हो, how would you advise someone else to who's thinking the same thing? तो when you do that, वो आप खुद एक self counseling कर रहे हैं कि ये thought rational नहीं है, उसको replace करते हैं एक rational thought से। So this particular therapy was one thing which really helped me, and it was not just something which helped aid my recovery, but it has also helped me keep off depression. Because ऐसा तो नहीं है that मुझे इतने सालों से ये हिस्ट्री जो है तो मैं एकदम 100% कभी मुझे लगता नहीं है, नो इट्स नॉट ट्रू, इट्स नॉट, इफ आई से दैट आई वुड बी लाइंग, बिकॉज कई बार मैं चीजों से ट्रिगर हो जाती हूँ, कई बार मुझे लगता है दैट इफ आई कंटिन्यू थिंकिंग दिस वे मैं वापस से वहीं पहुंच सकती हूँ. But now what has happened is with CBT and mindfulness meditation, these are two things, these are two tools which help me catch that thought when it is happening. तो अब वो rumination circle में मैं फिर नहीं जाती हूँ, मुझे पता है कि ये वहां जा रहा है. So that is one thing that I had forgotten when I was giving my narrative. But other than that, it's kind of difficult to say कि कैसे कोई ठीक हो जाता है. मेरे केस में CBT ने मुझे बहुत हेल्प किया, mindfulness meditation ने हेल्प किया, and कोई journaling and things like that, non medical therapies ने मुझे ज़्यादा हेल्प किया. It may not be everyone's story.
Thank you, Shubrata. A question that is related, like what helped you out of depression? A question है Sham SV. Sham, are you here? His question, I mean, of course, he compliments that it's great that you came out of depression, but in your entire conversation, you never mentioned the reason for your depression. I think Shubrata did mention that it started from postpartum.
उसको just मैं थोड़ा सा just for because a lot of people would be asking that there is no reason for depression. किसी को पता नहीं है आज तक, like Dr. Anukriti is part of the here she explains so well कि क्या क्या processes चलते हैं in the brain. Brain में कुछ changes आ जाते हैं, वो क्यों आते हैं, कैसे आते हैं, किसको आएंगे, that is not documented yet. Now जो research चल रहा है at present, it's at a very rudimentary stage, and most of it is happening mostly with mice brains, very little with active research on the human brain. But जो imaging techniques हैं, जैसे जो functional MRI है, and those things are helping us understand what is happening to the human brain when someone has a mental disorder. But I would say, as on date, with this current level of technology, we are nowhere even close to solving the issue. तो मे बी द टेक्नोलॉजी इटसेल्फ विल चेंज इन द फ्यूचर. मे बी हम 21 में जो लोग जिंदा रहें और यहाँ पर इस दुनिया में रहें, सो दे मे हैव एन आंसर फॉर इट, और हु नोज मे बी 50 years. आई डोंट नो टेक्नोलॉजी कैसे ये होगा, बट देयर इज नो रीजन फॉर समवन गेटिंग डिप्रेशन. वो कह नहीं सकते, देयर माइट बी, बट इट इज नॉट नोन. इट इज नॉट नोन टू एनीवन एट ऑल. देयर कैन बी ट्रिगर्स, एंड वो इंटरसेक्शनैलिटी भी होती है कि अगर आपका एक जेनेटिक डिस्पोजिशन है, या आपके बॉडी में जो बायोलॉजिकल एनवायरनमेंट है, या फिर आपका जो साइकोलॉजिकल एंड सोशल एनवायरनमेंट है. सो बायो साइकोसोशल, दैट इज व्हाट इज एट प्रेजेंट हेल्ड टू बी द मॉडल ऑफ डिप्रेशन, कॉजेशन ऑफ डिप्रेशन. बट कॉज कोई नहीं बता सकता किसी के भी केस में. दिस इज अगेन अ मिथ कि किसी की लाइफ में कोई एक ऐसा इवेंट हो गया विच कॉजेज डिप्रेशन. दिस इज अ मिथ.
इससे रिलेटेड एक क्वेश्चन हम स्कैन कर रहे थे, तो एक संदीप सारस्वत का एक क्वेश्चन है. He says that in most of the time it has been observed postpartum depression is too high in urban and rural areas too, village areas too. Is there any specific hormone secreted during this condition? Dr. Anukriti, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Again, see the way around 10 to 15% होता है. 10 से 15% केसेस में जो डिलीवरी में जाते हैं, मोस्टली फर्स्ट डिलीवरी में जाते हैं, उनको डिलीवरी होने के पहले कुछ हफ्ते, मे बी समटाइम्स इवन अप टू 6 months सिम्टम्स ऑफ डिप्रेशन अगर ऑनसेट हो जाते हैं तो उसको पोस्टमार्टम डिप्रेशन कहते हैं. पोस्टमार्टम डिप्रेशन इज अंडरस्टूड इन सच अ वे कि कुछ हार्मोनल चेंजेस जरूर रहते हैं प्रेगनेंसी के दौरान, जो फीटस को, यूट्रस को, बेबी को सपोर्ट करते हैं, जो डिलीवरी के दौरान एकदम ही रिवर्स हो जाते हैं क्योंकि और जरूरत नहीं होती है उन हार्मोन्स की. सो ये जो चेंजेस होते हैं ये ब्रेन की स्टेबिलिटी को टिप ऑफ कर देते हैं. सो सॉर्ट ऑफ एक ब्रेन जो अदरवाइज वल्नरेबल है टू हैविंग अ डिप्रेसिव एपिसोड, वो स्ट्रेसर उसका आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड से भी हो सकता है, कुछ न्यूरोकेमिकल हो सकता है, या कोई कारण ना भी हो. So many times this delivery or the hormonal changes associated with delivery trigger off a depressive episode in a vulnerable brain. सबको नहीं होता है, 10 to 15% में होता है, और जिनको एक बार होता है उनको डेफिनेटली मूड डिसऑर्डर बार होता है. इनमें से कुछों को सिर्फ प्रेगनेंसी के बाद ही होता है, कुछों को अदरवाइज भी होने लगता है. तो इसको इस तरह से समझा जाता है. वो कौन सा एग्जैक्ट हार्मोन है वो नहीं पता है. प्रोजेस्टेरोन का लेवल फॉल कर जाता है, अपना प्रोलैक्टिन, ऑक्सीटोसिन बढ़ जाता है डिलीवरी के टाइम, लेकिन कोई आइसोलेटेड हार्मोन नहीं है जिसको आइसोलेट करके समझा जाता है ओके दिस इज द वन दैट इज द कॉजल एजेंट फॉर डिप्रेशन. एंड बेसिकली पूरा न्यूरोकेमिस्ट्री जो चेंज हो जाता है डिप्रेशन के साथ, सॉरी डिलीवरी के साथ, इन टर्म्स ऑफ हार्मोन्स, वो एक वल्नरेबल ब्रेन को डिस्टेबलाइज कर जाता है। तो जो एग्जिस्टिंग सिनेरियो होता है जैसे चाइल्ड बर्थ और न्यू चेंजेस इन लाइफ, वो बहुत बर्डनसम और बहुत ओवरवेलमिंग लगने लगते हैं, तब व्यक्ति या लेडी डिप्रेशन में चले जाती है ना पोस्टमार्टम पीरियड। तो एक पैथोनॉमिक फाइंडिंग नहीं है कि ये वाला हार्मोन एग्जैक्टली टिप ऑफ करता है।
Dr. Anukriti, hi, this is Sandeep here. So my question was one more question. It is I read in US about 80% in population is affected with the depression. Okay. So 80. I read on internet. Okay.
No, there are a lot of things on the internet which we must not read also.
No. I understand. But if it is not 80, at least it will be 40 to 50%. Okay. So.
No, it's much lower than that. 20 to 25% is the prevalence of lifetime prevalence of depression in most races. Anyways, yes, please go ahead with the next part of your question.
Yeah. So my question was like after COVID, this percentage 100% might have shooten up, like in India.
Yeah.
Okay. So this depression during this COVID, have you any? Do you have any kind of data that whether it has increased more in male or in female?
Okay. Right now, since such kind of data is still being collected, there have been mostly online surveys throughout this COVID period, but there is no doubt that all the aspects that the corona has entailed, there is one fear of getting infected with the virus, there is a fear of losing a loved one to the virus. Along with that, there is a lot of significant social isolation in the lockdown in which you're in your house, you're not able to meet with your social supports, your friends or other things. And there is a financial aspect also to this whole corona lockdown period across the globe in which people have lost out on money and jobs and other things. So there are multiple areas of stress in this period. So this data is still being collected. And your question is very pointed as to more in women or more in men. I do not think we have a good hold on such data right now. There have been multiple online surveys. Studies are still undergoing. There are theses even in my hospital that are being done by the students on this whole depression phase in the depression during corona. So the statistics is at this point still going to be found out. However, depression in general is more common in women as compared to men. However, the more extreme forms, maybe suicide and other things, are more in men. And there is also age differentiation in depression, increased risk in older ages. But recently, the younger age group has been diagnosed more and more with depression. It's about 3% in the children and 8% in the adolescents. Also, this is American data again. So it is not 80% of Americans having depression. No, it is not. It is 20 to 25% lifetime prevalence across the globe mostly. And definitely corona phase, because of the social isolation, the risk of having the illness, the financial and other aspects of it have triggered a new depressive episode or a recurrence of a previous depressive episode or a worsening of depression also. Also, many people have not been able to meet their doctors and get their prescriptions refilled and not been able to seek medicines. So treatment dropouts भी बहुत रहे हैं हमारे इस बीच में. तो मरीजों की डेफिनेटली डिप्रेशन बढ़ा है, लेकिन अगर आप स्टैटिस्टिक्स चाहते हैं तो आई थिंक यू शुड वेट अ लिटिल लॉन्गर.
Okay.
या
Thank you.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर. एक क्वेश्चन है फ्रॉम बालाजी सिंह चौहान एंड I'd like Shubrata to you take this first and Dr. Anukriti you also respond to it later. How does one handle unhelpful persons during the period of normalization, especially when we have no choice but to face them routinely? ये बहुत pertinent question है.
And a very difficult question to answer because मेरे case में I had the choice of cutting out people. In fact, जब मैं recover कर रही थी, I wasn't even in India. I was in Bangkok and मेरा वहाँ बहुत limited social circle था. So I was kind of but I have done things for myself. Like I've gone off Facebook. I hardly use it. I have gone off all social media except Twitter. Twitter में regularly देखती हूँ because it's a part of my job. I have to keep abreast of what's happening in the world in the news. So and that's where I do most of my mental health advocacy as well because Facebook तो मैंने almost बिल्कुल ही बंद कर दिया है. So do that. Do these things. These things are important. That आप नहीं किसी से helpful जो नहीं है. If someone is triggering you, see, ultimately it's your life, and your niceness to them is not going to matter if you are not there. So cut out things and people जो कि आपके life में are not helpful. That are making you, triggering you further, making you dysfunctional. And to the extent that it's not possible to avoid them, pata nahi, I really don't know. I cannot think of a coping strategy just off the bat. But yes, I mean, social media, etc. जो भी आप जहाँ तक आप limit कर सकते हैं, please do that. They should not feel guilty about it, because ultimately in your life you are the most important person. So it's absolutely your right to choose what you feel is the right thing for you.
Absolutely, doctor.
There are two ways of handling any problem in general. They're called the Freudian defense mechanisms. They are the way we process conflict. So in this particular case, we're talking about the people who are not helping, people who are critical, people who are commenting, making fun, not making things easier, in fact, making them more difficult for us while we're already having the depression or maybe out of it recently. So I think a mature way of handling it is definitely humor. All the humor that came out in ma'am's excerpts was absolutely fantastic. So I think humor really helps. One form of defense mechanism, which is considered a very mature form of defense mechanism. One is that, and the other is intellectualization, which in this case would seem to be mature, in which you handle it like you handle ignorance. अब किसी व्यक्ति को नहीं समझ में आ रहा है सब समझाने के बाद भी, तो आप उसको कैसे हैंडल करते हैं? आप किसी थॉट को एड्रेस करते हैं, ठीक है सबको सब कुछ नहीं समझ में आता है, और ये वैसे भी एक कॉन्सेप्ट है जो बहुत सारे मिथ से एसोसिएटेड है और स्टिग्मा से एसोसिएटेड है. सो जस्ट बी फॉरगिविंग and ignore the thing. So you can intellectualize it like that कि सबको तो सब कुछ नहीं समझ में आता है, and maybe with time they will understand. It is obviously a growing awareness required there, so it's all right, be forgiving. I don't think, because see, so many times when we also, as doctors or psychiatrists, we interact with so many people, they say so many things that oh, you must be so depressed, talking to the depressed people, you must completely get exhausted. How do you deal with your everyday? So part of me handles it with a lot of humor. I'm like, okay, if this is the way it is perceived, it's a fun way to think about it. And then the other aspect is that, the fact comes across that people are so ignorant, they don't understand the depression. और सच बात ये है कि डिप्रेशन सिर्फ दो व्यक्ति समझते हैं, जिसको हो चुका है या उसका डॉक्टर. एक्चुअली बाकी सब सिर्फ कोशिश कर सकते हैं, पर वो एक्सपीरियंस लिव करना और एवरीडे उसको डील करना एक अलग लेवल की अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, तो सबसे वो एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करना चाहिए. So I think you intellectualize this concept or do you humor it yourself? I think you can handle it in either ways.
हाँ, ये डॉक्टर अनुकृति, इससे रिलेटेड ही ये एक और कमेंट है विपिन पांडे का कि जो मिथ्स के बारे में कि डिप्रेशन की दवा का प्रभाव का शरीर पे प्रभाव गलत पड़ता है. डिप्रेशन बड़े लोगों को होता है, समाज का डर, खानदान का डर, बीमारी होती है, ठीक नहीं होती है. ऐसे फोबिया को लेकर क्या किया जाए? तो
आप अपने डॉक्टर से मिलिए और कुछ डिप्रेशन के बारे में अच्छी साइट से साइट से पढ़िए. अगर आप इंटरनेट सारी हैं, नहीं तो डॉक्टर से मिलिए, साइकाइट्रिस्ट से मिलिए, साइकोलॉजिस्ट से मिलिए. आपको अच्छी तरह से गाइड कर देंगे कि ये बीमारी है, 20 से हर 5 में से एक व्यक्ति को तो होती ही है पूरे विश्व में. इस बीमारी से निकलने के लिए बहुत अच्छे इलाज उपलब्ध हैं और ये इलाज बहुत ट्राइड एंड टेस्टेड है. बहुत ज्यादा लोगों को ज्यादा परेशानियां नहीं होती. ज्यादातर लोग 70% लोग ठीक होते हैं, टॉलरेट करते हैं, सेफ भी रहते हैं, और शरीर पर दुष्प्रभाव ना हो, ये आपके डॉक्टर की जिम्मेदारी है. आपके डॉक्टर को ये ध्यान देना है कि आपके शरीर पे दुष्प्रभाव ना हो, और उसी हिसाब से ट्रीटमेंट आगे बढ़ता है. क्योंकि हम लोग कॉन्स्टेंटली रिस्क बेनिफिट एनालिसिस करते रहते हैं. अगर हमारे किसी भी इलाज से फायदा तो हो रहा है लेकिन नुकसान बहुत हो रहा है, तो हम आगे नहीं बढ़ते हैं उसको लेके, है ना. तो ये सब चीजें हैं. तो सेफ इलाज उपलब्ध है और ज्यादा परेशान मत होइए. और एटलीस्ट दिल्ली एनसीआर में तो काफी ट्रीटमेंट ऑप्शन अवेलेबल हैं, बहुत गवर्नमेंट प्राइवेट में.
और ये पढ़िए.
Absolutely.
It is written only for this purpose.
Exactly. शुभ्रता, एक क्वेश्चन तुम्हारे लिए भी है। शुभ्रता को हम तुम बोलते हैं क्योंकि बचपन से जानते हैं इसको, तो तुम ही निकलता है, वो भी तुलिका दी बोल रही है। तो ये अर्चना से क्वेश्चन है। अर्चना, अंडर द बैनर ऑफ प्राउड प्रेजेंस, कि हाउ डू यू डील विद द फैक्ट दैट यू मे हैव टू लिव विद ADHD फॉरएवर? I think people need to know that one can have a functional life and yet live with mental illness. तो ये इसके बारे में तुम अपना प्रतिक्रिया।
It is difficult. मैं ये नहीं कहूँगी कि आसान है. It is very difficult. And since I've been so open and honest about so many things, तो I mean I have no problem saying this because मेरे ऑफिस में हर किसी को पता है, and I do keep मेरे चाहे वो seniors हों चाहे colleagues हों. So there are times when you will find me squirming in meetings. मीटिंग्स में मुझे लगता है मैं अब उठ के भाग जाऊं. आई जस्ट फील लाइक रनिंग अवे, बट देन आई नो आई हैव टू बी देयर एंड हैव टू लिसन टू व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. तो डिफरेंट कोपिंग स्ट्रैटेजीज है. जैसे ये बचपन से ही एक मेरी स्ट्रैटेजी थी व्हिच आई डिडंट इवन नो, जैसे जो फिजेट स्पिनर होता है. सो आई हैड नो फिजेट स्पिनर एवर, बट आई यूज्ड टू कीप प्लेइंग विद माय हेयर. आई यूज्ड टू कीप प्लेइंग विद माय हेयर. And that's a self-learned strategy जो मुझे पता भी नहीं था. I analyzed it only now after getting this diagnosis. So then I know that जैसे बचपन की भी सारी classes में मेरे IRS batchmates, they tease me so much that खुली आंखों से सोना is something you learn from Shubhrata. I mean, the Shubh is the only person who can teach you how to sleep with your open eyes, because I've done this all through school and college and training days. I'm there, but I'm not really there. So, but I found जैसे कि जो थोड़ी सी इंटरेस्टिंग क्लास होती थी तो उसमें I used to keep writing. कि टीचर जो कह रही है, if I can focus then I write. So that is something, again, it is a self-learned strategy that helps me to focus, and also because वो लिखा रहता है, because my perception and my way of gleaning information is better visually. I'm better with reading, I'm better with charts, but वो कोई जैसे लेक्चर होता है या टॉक होता है, I just zone off. So those are things. I have got my own strategies. जहाँ medication देना है, I take medication also. I have all of these things. And if I have to live lifelong with this, what is the big deal? I take something for hypothyroidism every day. I take something for my blood pressure. I take a statin for cholesterol. I take all these medications. तो ये भी तो lifelong मुझे लेना है. So अगर लेना है तो लेना है lifelong जैसे भी है. And this is where something that my parents keep saying, I think they are there, and I'm very happy to share this, that this is what they have been always saying. My parents have always said कि ठीक रहना है जैसे भी ठीक हो. अगर दवा के साथ आप ठीक हो तो भी ठीक है, दवा के बिना ठीक हो तो भी ठीक है. The objective is to be functional, to be alive, to be productive, and I'm able to do that with everything that's around me. And है reports में मोटी reports पढ़ती हूँ, नीति आयोग. I have so many reports to read and write, and all of it बहुत कुछ चलता रहता है. I have so many 4-5 meetings in a day sometimes, but I manage कर लेती हूँ. And बस I just wish कि सबकी wishes and blessings रहें, so I'm able to continue. जितने दिन मैं जिंदा रहूँ, I'm functional. जो भी कंडीशन है जैसे भी है, because I keep saying this all this time, and ये मैंने बहुत जगह अपने बहुत आर्टिकल्स में लिखा है, बहुत ट्वीट्स में मैं लिखती रहती हूँ, that I am not ashamed. I am not ashamed of anything. I have disability. I have had disability on account of having had a history of depression, having anxiety disorder, having psychosocial disability. Oh shit. But I'm not ashamed of any of this. It's happened to me, and I am still able to live my life with this. I may not be okay, but it's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely. And Vijay Singh, आपके लेक्चर्स में जरूर zoned out रहती थी शुभ्रता जान. वो कहीं भी रहे, I that's it. That's my brain. And a lot of my teachers may be watching this. Like Tulika ma'am is there, and a lot of my other teachers also, I'm sure, जिनको मैं देख नहीं पा रही हूँ, will be there. A lot of my seniors also, but that's how it is. It is what it is. It's strange how much I also, kind of resonate with what you're saying. And I also tend to zone out. मेरी बहन जो डॉक्टर है वो भी कहती है कि ठीक रहना है, डायबिटीज हाइपरटेंशन का मेडिसिन हम भी खाते हैं कि मेडिसिन हटाना नहीं है जब तक ठीक नहीं हो, ठीक रहना है दवा के साथ या दवा के बिना. सो एब्सोल्युटली ऑन पॉइंट देयर. Tejrashi ma'am, I saw you raise your hand. Do you want to ask a question? Ma'am, unmute कर लीजिए please. Ma'am, you are on mute. I cannot unmute you. If you can unmute yourself.
Sejal can unmute, ma'am. Sejal, are you there?
And in the meantime, while ma'am is unmuting herself, Shubrata, I did want to point out the number of accolades that have come to you in the chat window. How much people have appreciated. We have, such kind words from so many people. Nabinita, Chetna, Vipin, Ishan, Pradeep, Sham, Sandeep, of course, Archana, Vikramjit, Joy Talakdar, Priya, Ankit Shiromani. He is a UPSC aspirant, and he said that a story from a senior officer is so inspiring. Ankit, you have Archana also to get inspired from. So no dearth of inspiration if you look for them. But yes, these are really like iconic examples that you have in the bureaucracy. Sanjeevan Lal, I mean, such beautiful observation, crossing roads, shades of colors. How one would know if not shared? I mean, Shubrata, again, great sharing. Now he says he will go and read your book. Good one. Vivek, he says he's proud of you, Dimpy. Yeah. And then Gautam also, Gautam, if you're there, तुम खुद बोलो बहुत क्लिष्ट हिंदी लिखा है, तो हम पढ़ेंगे, लेकिन अभी पहले तेजराशि मैम का हम लोग क्वेश्चन सुन लेते हैं.
It's not a question. It's not a question. I just want to thank Subrata and Anupriti for enlightening me, because even now that I'm retired, I get many people calling me when they are depressed. So I educate myself from their experiences and their knowledge. I'm so proud of you, Shubrata, and of course Archana, how you all have managed. I have had bits of it myself. And about crossing the road, I was teaching girls, help me how to cross the road even when I was in Notre Dame. But the first time I crossed the road all by myself, it was a proud moment for me. I share all my experiences with my children also, and all those who ask for help. I'm not a professional, but through my experiences with my children, I've learned a lot. And till today, I attend most of the sessions because I'm in the process of learning further to help people. And thank you all. Thank you, Shubrata. Thank you, Archana. Thank you, Tulika.
Thank you so much.
Part of it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for always being there. एक टीचर जो हमेशा स्कूल से लेके आज तक अपना हाथ रखा है हम लोग के सर पे, वो तेजराशि मैम.
Yeah, and I'd like to salute to Subrata for the sharing her experiences. You know, I got goosebumps at many times, and I got my eyes were moist at many times because I can understand what she must have gone through. But I'm so proud that she can share it and help so many people today. And God bless you. You'll always be fine. You'll always be fine. Huh?
Thank you, ma'am.
As I said, I still have moist eyes, you know.
I know.
So do I, ma'am. So do I.
My children will be my children for lifetime.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I have goosebumps and moist eyes too. I mean, many times in the session, I face the same thing. In the meantime, some more questions have come. Let's see if we can take like a minute each to answer these questions. We are at 12:56, so we'd definitely like to wind up in another 4-5 minutes. Ranjita Dubey. Ranjita, ho kya abhi? It's the question to Dr. Anukriti.
Yes, I'm there.
हाँ रंजीता पूछो, खुद पूछो. So it's a question on how to handle depression in adolescents and kids. Dr. Anukriti, especially those refusing to go to a psychiatrist.
This question actually can be applied across the age groups. However, specifically if we're talking about the kids and the adolescents, there is no one particular solution to that problem. You have to motivate them. If your child is maybe an adolescent and is reading on the internet, then maybe you can maybe search up some articles before the whole treatment process or treatment seeking begins. Maybe educate them, educate yourself, educate them, let them read some information and let them read about, people who are in all walks of life having these kind of symptoms, and that is okay. And you can actually seek out for treatment. So that whole gap between acceptance and denial, that has to be just washed away. The education and awareness is the best way to go about it. A good rapport with your child really helps. If you have a good rapport with your child, it really helps. Sometimes you may need to take the route through other people who have a better rapport with them, like their own friends, or maybe some other relatives, grandparents, or some aunts and uncles who they listen to more. Maybe a school teacher they might listen to. You can also start by maybe accessing or approaching through the school counselor. There are counselors in most schools now, and then the child becomes more receptive and amenable to the idea of maybe having these problems and seeking further treatment. So you can take one of these directions, because a lot of children are highly resistant. Plus, it is not really their fault. The matter is only such, and they think also upon their level of understanding of the complexities of the problem, there can be a refusal, there can be resistance. And I think you tackle that with love, care, and some education, and maybe sometimes through other people also.
Yes. It's tricky, but yeah, I think it's a journey. A question है वनीता शैलेश का कि how to get the concerned patients to listen to the good talks. I think forums like these. Again, I think there is, we have to be the ambassadors. We have to continue to spread the message. The only reason why we convene and keep discussing and keep engaging in conversations, and why we have people like Shubrata share their stories with all their vulnerabilities is to show, set examples. तो ये जितना हम लोग बात को करेंगे, फैलाएंगे और इसको नॉर्मल, जिसको हम हमेशा बोलते हैं कि मेन स्ट्रीम कॉन्वर्सेशन बनाना है, कि इसके बारे में कोई टैबू नहीं है, कोई अलग से श्राउडेड इन मिस्ट्री नहीं है कि हश 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 एकदम सीरियस हो जाओ. नॉर्मल बात करो, जैसे सब चीजों के बारे में बात करते हैं वैसे बात करो, और जितना स्प्रेड करेगा, कोई एक सिंपल शॉर्टकट नहीं है. बट अगर किसी के पास कोई और इससे बेटर आंसर है तो प्लीज डू शेयर.
Doctor, there is one this thing that there's been an ongoing thing with my daughter. It's been quite a lot of years, and the problem was that because it's like Archana might be having some idea, because my husband was very strict and all that, and I think that has led to my daughter's this thing. Now that is continuing. Husband also is in the bureaucracy, everything. So his is the last word, and she's not able to get out of it. Like there's cycles of like she's working a girl, and just now also she's there in some mood, but I can't approach her because she's always seen me that I am not effective against my husband. She thinks that maybe I cannot help her, that way. So
many times the family dynamics only become, so complex that the decision making actually gets affected because of the family dynamics. So there maybe you can have another influential person in your extended family to intervene and maybe, talk to her or talk to your husband and maybe take the way out. Because, the whole idea is कि ठीक रहने के लिए या अच्छे से रहने के लिए अगर हमारे पास available options हैं तो why not access them?
Yes, actually, we are always wondering whether to, because for years the treatment is going on. Actually, she's with the Fortis and all that. So when do you decide when to go for another opinion that way? Once we left, her lithium was put off, then there was adverse effect. She's on lithium also, and so I don't know. Like I would like to maybe I could come to you sometime with her,
No.
like,
Yeah.
but how to get her, like that's the thing. But she's also sometimes, finally she's having a nice counselor with the other people, but she's not totally out of it. That much I can see. Always she's getting into something or the
Let
other.
me tell you a surprising fact. A lot of family members, they come to us in proxy for the first time. They come without their
Okay.
children